Have you ever sat in a quiet room, no distractions, no one around, and suddenly, almost without warning, found yourself asking, "Why am I here?" Not in the practical sense of why you're sitting in that particular chair or why your tea has grown cold beside you, but in the deeper, quieter, more mysterious way. The kind of question that echoes not just in your thoughts, but somewhere deeper, in your bones, in your breath, in the spaces of your heart that don't always have words. It's a question that doesn't seem to leave us, no matter how old we get. In fact, for many of us, it grows louder with age. When the children are grown, when the work is done, when the busyness fades, what remains is this echo, this curiosity, this yearning to understand whether our lives, in all their twists and turns, have truly meant something. And the truth is, even after all these years, many of us still don't know. Maybe that's okay. Maybe we've spent our lives believing we were supposed to figure it all out, to solve life like a puzzle, to find some grand meaning, some final answer that makes everything make sense. But what if life wasn't meant to be solved at all? What if it was only ever meant to be felt? What if your purpose isn't hidden in a job, or a title, or someone else's opinion, but in the way you notice the color of the sky when the sun rises, the way your heart responds to music, the way your eyes soften when you see someone you love? What if your purpose is found not in the answers, but in the attention you give to this moment, this breath, this life that is happening through you right now? There are those who will say, we must find purpose, define it, pursue it relentlessly, and perhaps there's truth in that. But there is another truth, quieter and just as sacred, that being alive, truly, consciously, vulnerably alive, is purpose enough. That to feel joy is a form of worship. That to grieve well is to honor the ones we've lost. That to laugh with your whole chest, even when life hasn't been easy, is an act of quiet rebellion against despair. So before we go any further, I invite you to breathe. Not deeply, not perfectly, just gently. You're here. And maybe that's enough. Because what if, after all the striving, the searching, the effort to become something more, the most important work left to do is to be, to feel what it means to be human, to feel all of it, the love, the pain, the doubt, the joy, and to let that be your teacher. What if that's why you're here? If you've ever felt that life must be more than just surviving, that there's something sacred about simply being, then stay with me, because this journey isn't about getting to the top, it's about going inward. It's about remembering something you may have forgotten, something beautiful and quiet and always true, and it begins right where you are. 1. Memory, meaning, and the objects we keep. It's strange, isn't it? How certain objects, simple, ordinary things, can hold so much of our emotional history. A faded photograph, a chipped teacup, a child's handwritten note tucked away in the back of a drawer. We keep them not because they're useful, not because they're beautiful in the conventional sense, but because they carry something sacred, memory. And not just memory, but meaning. A meaning only we can see, only we can feel. I remember a friend once telling me about a worn-out scarf she kept tucked in the corner of her closet. It had belonged to her late mother, who had worn it every winter until the day she passed. It didn't smell like her anymore. The color had faded, but still, every year when the seasons changed, she would pull it out, wrap it around her neck, and feel for just a few moments that her mother was near. It wasn't the scarf itself that mattered, but the love it represented, the presence it whispered. This is the beautiful contradiction of aging. While we slowly learn to let go of so many things, we also begin to understand the invisible threads that bind us to the past. And those threads, more often than not, are found in the quiet corners of our homes, among boxes we've moved from place to place, among items others might dismiss as junk. But they're not junk. They are pieces of our story. In Buddhist thought, we are reminded constantly of the impermanence of all things. All conditioned things are impermanent, the Buddha said. When one sees this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering, and yet we still hold on to these objects, these memories, not because we want to resist impermanence, but because we wish to honor what passed through our lives with love. Sometimes, we are even reminded of what has been lost. A stuffed animal given by a friend we no longer speak to. A letter from someone whose voice we haven't heard in years. These things can sting, but they also remind us that we once loved, that we once felt deeply, and that in itself is something worth keeping. The trick, perhaps, is not in throwing everything away in the name of detachment, but in recognizing what we're truly holding on to. Is it the object itself, or is it the connection, the tenderness, the moment of beauty it brings back to life? Objects can be gateways, yes, but we don't have to live in the past to walk through them. There's a Zen parable I've always loved. A monk, preparing to leave his temple, was asked by his students why he was taking nothing with him. He smiled and said, "The things that matter I've already packed in here," and he pointed to his heart. So perhaps the invitation isn't to rid ourselves of everything that holds meaning, but to ask more gently, what is this thing helping me remember? What feeling does it awaken in me? And if that feeling is rooted in love, maybe it's not clutter at all. Maybe it's a thread back to ourselves. As we grow older, the line between material and emotional softens. We begin to see that a child's drawing can be more valuable than any painting, that an old recipe card can carry more weight than any inheritance. And so we honor these small things, not because they're grand, but because they quietly remind us that we have lived, we have loved, and we are still here. 2. Joy and pain in equal measure. The fullness of being human. There's a quiet truth that often only reveals itself as we get older. Joy and pain are not opposites. They are companions, not rivals, but reflections of one another. It may sound strange at first, almost poetic, even impractical, but when you've lived enough years, loved enough people, and lost enough things, you begin to see it clearly. That every moment of beauty has always carried the shadow of loss, and that every heartache has left behind some sliver of light. The deeper the sorrow, the more room the heart eventually makes for joy. There was a time, not long ago, when I found myself sitting across from a woman in her 70s who had recently lost her partner of 45 years. Her grief was raw, almost too much to look at. But as she spoke, between the pauses and the soft sobs, she said something that stayed with me. The pain is unbearable sometimes, but I wouldn't trade it for anything, because it reminds me how deeply I loved, and how deeply I was loved in return. That, I realized, was the paradox of being human. We hurt because we care. We suffer because we allow ourselves to feel. And that's not weakness. That's a kind of sacred strength. The Buddha never promised a life without suffering. In fact, he made it the foundation of his first noble truth. There is suffering, but he didn't stop there. He also taught that in the full presence of suffering, when we cease resisting it, when we stop trying to push it away or numb it down, we actually awaken to something more vast than either pain or pleasure. We awaken to life itself. You see, most of us spend years trying to avoid pain, building our walls, perfecting our schedules, distracting ourselves with activity and control. But life has a way of sneaking past all of that. Illness arrives, relationships change, people we love pass away, and in those moments we are left raw and exposed. But oddly enough, it's often in that rawness that we begin to truly feel alive. We stop clinging to certainty. We soften. We cry when something is beautiful. We laugh more freely because we know how precious it is. Joy doesn't only come in the soft, quiet moments either. Sometimes it comes right in the middle of grief. Sometimes it's the sunlight falling on your face as you leave the hospital, or a familiar song playing in a store that reminds you of a time when everything felt okay. These flickers of joy, unexpected, uninvited, are the universe's way of reminding us that we are still here, and that being here despite everything is still a gift. The key is not in trying to balance joy and sorrow like a scale, keeping them equal. It's in allowing both to exist fully without pushing one away. In Buddhist practice, mindfulness teaches us to be with what is, not what we wish things were. When we sit with our breath, we don't ask it to only be peaceful. We simply notice, we receive it. We trust that every inhale and exhale belongs. In the same way, can we trust our emotional life? Can we allow joy to wash over us without guilt? Can we let sorrow move through us without shame? That perhaps is one of the final and greatest lessons of aging, to feel everything fully and to find peace, not in perfection, but in presence. Because maybe the real purpose of life is not to be happy all the time. Maybe it's simply to be awake for all of it. The heartache and the healing, the laughter and the tears. And if we're lucky, not lucky in circumstance, but in openness, we may just find that both pain and joy come to us in equal measure, and both are here to teach us how to love this life more deeply. 3. Inner strength, the inner child, and the will to go on. There are moments in life when we surprise even ourselves with how strong we become. Not because we wanted to be, not because we planned to be, but because life simply gave us no other option. We get up, we carry on. We take one more step forward even when our hearts feel like they've shattered into too many pieces to count. For many of us, that strength was first awakened in the role of caretaker, especially as parents, grandparents, or guardians. When someone else depends on you, you don't have time to wallow. You can't afford to disappear into despair. So you wipe your tears, you take a deep breath, and you do what needs to be done. Not because you feel strong, but because someone needs you to be. And sometimes, that's when true strength is born, not from certainty, but from love in action. I once sat with a man named Thomas, who raised his daughter alone after his wife passed unexpectedly when their child was only 6. I didn't know how to do it, he told me. I was broken, but I looked at her little face, and I realized that if I didn't get up, she would fall with me. So I stood for her every day, and what he didn't realize until years later was that he wasn't just standing up for her, he was standing up for the part of himself that had long been neglected. His own inner child, the young boy inside who had felt abandoned and unseen, finally began to receive the care he had always needed. In Buddhist teachings, we are reminded to cultivate metta, loving kindness toward all beings. But too often, we forget that we are also among all beings. The self is not separate from the compassion we offer the world. The practice of self-love is not selfish. It is sacred. It is necessary. And yet, it's one of the hardest practices to embrace. So many of us were raised with the idea that love had to be earned, that we were only worthy when we were productive, generous, quiet, or selfless. As we age, we begin to see how those beliefs quietly shaped the way we talk to ourselves, the way we apologize for needing rest, the way we hesitate to ask for help, the way we still look in the mirror and see what's wrong instead of what's beautiful. But there comes a moment, especially in the stillness of later life, when we finally begin to question that script. We start to wonder, what if I am already enough? What if I've always been enough? That question is powerful. It's liberating. And sometimes it arrives not from our own insight, but from someone else's love. A touch, a smile, a moment when someone sees us not as broken or aging or incomplete, but as whole, exactly as we are. There's a quote from the Buddhist teacher Jack Kornfield that says, "If your compassion does not include yourself, it is incomplete." And that truth becomes even more profound as we grow older. Because as our bodies change, as our roles shift, as we say goodbye to people and chapters we once held dear, what remains, what always remains, is the relationship we have with ourselves. So we begin to turn inward, not with judgment, but with curiosity. We begin to notice the younger version of ourselves still living within, the child who needed protection, the teenager who needed encouragement, the adult who needed permission to rest, and we offer them what they needed all along. This too is healing. This too is part of the path. You've carried others for so long. Maybe now is the time to carry yourself, gently, kindly, like someone worthy of love, because you are. 4. Don't panic, and remember who you are. There are certain phrases that stay with us long after they're spoken, not because they were loud or dramatic, but because they landed deep in the soul at just the right moment. They become more than words. They become mantras, gentle anchors for the times when life feels stormy or uncertain. One such phrase came to life for a woman I once met, named Elaine. She was a single mother for most of her adult life, raising her daughter through years of uncertainty, financial hardship, and quiet courage. When things became too heavy, too overwhelming, Elaine had two things she would whisper to herself and to her daughter: "Don't panic, and remember who you are." Simple words, but they held power. The kind of power that comes not from explanation, but from presence. Years later, her daughter gifted her a small, embroidered cloth with those exact words stitched in delicate thread. Don't panic. It became more than advice. It became a philosophy, a way of navigating the unknown without collapsing into fear. And as life continued to unfold, with its unpredictable joys and sorrows, Elaine found herself turning to that little piece of fabric like a prayer flag, a reminder that panic is not required, that stillness, even in chaos, is possible. From a Buddhist perspective, this is precisely the wisdom we cultivate through mindfulness, to remain grounded, to observe our experience as it is, not as we fear it might become. The Buddha often spoke about the importance of equanimity, a calm mind amid the shifting winds of joy and sorrow. He taught, as a solid rock is not shaken by the wind, so the wise are not moved by praise or blame. In essence, don't panic. Be here. Breathe. The second phrase, "Remember who you are," is perhaps even more profound, because so often we forget. We confuse ourselves with our roles, our age, our regrets, our mistakes. We think we are our limitations. We define ourselves by what we've lost, instead of who we've become. But who you are is not your resume. It's not your relationships. It's not even your body. Though it carries you so faithfully, who you are is something quieter, deeper. It's that steady awareness behind your eyes, the warmth that rises when you witness kindness, the ache in your chest when you hear a beautiful piece of music, the part of you that still cries when you remember something precious and still laughs without warning. That is your true nature, and remembering it isn't a one-time event, it's a lifelong practice. In Buddhist thought, there's a teaching known as Buddha nature, the idea that every being, regardless of their circumstances, carries within them the seed of awakening, the spark of inherent goodness. We don't have to become anyone else. We simply have to remember what has always been true. So when the days feel heavy, when your purpose feels unclear, when the past haunts you or the future worries you, pause. Place a hand over your heart and whisper to yourself, "Don't panic. Remember who you are. You are not lost. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are unfolding." Maybe the spiritual journey isn't about learning new truths, but about remembering old ones, the ones you knew as a child, before the world taught you to forget. And maybe, just maybe, the two most powerful teachings you'll ever need have already been given to you. Don't panic. Remember who you are. Everything else flows from there. 5. The gift of being seen and the power of truly seeing others. There are few things more sacred in this life than the experience of being truly seen. Not just looked at, but seen, in all your wholeness and your weariness, your beauty and your brokenness. And as we get older, this longing doesn't disappear. In fact, for many, it grows deeper. Because the older we become, the more invisible we can feel, in a world that often values speed, youth, and surface over depth. But to be seen, really seen, is not about being admired. It's about being acknowledged. It's when someone looks into your eyes and stays, when they listen not to reply, but to understand, when they make space for you to show up without performance or polish. And when they do, something inside you relaxes, the armor comes down, the breath deepens. You realize you don't have to carry it all alone. I remember a woman named June, in her early 80s, who once told me, "The loneliest I've ever felt wasn't when I lived alone. It was when I was surrounded by people who didn't really see me." Her words landed heavy and true, because presence without attention isn't connection, it's noise. And so many of us, especially in later life, find ourselves swimming in noise, but starving for presence. In Buddhist teaching, there is a practice known as deep listening, a form of meditation in motion. Thich Nhat Hanh, a beloved Zen master, described it as listening with only one purpose, to help the other person suffer less. This kind of listening is not about fixing, advising, or comparing. It is about holding space with compassion, allowing the other person to empty their heart without fear of judgment. And in doing so, we not only offer healing, we receive it too. Because here's the paradox: when you truly see someone else, you begin to see yourself more clearly. When you hold space for another's truth, you soften toward your own. There is a quiet reciprocity in presence. It flows both ways. And sometimes, it takes just one moment of being deeply seen to remind you of who you are. Perhaps this is why the experience of being witnessed, gently without intrusion, feels like a return to the self that existed before the world told you who to be. A return to the voice inside that says, "You matter, you're enough. You don't have to earn love." But here's the thing: to be seen, we must also allow ourselves to be seen. Vulnerability, as frightening as it can be, is the gateway to connection. It asks us to let go of the masks we've worn, the smile that hides the sadness, the politeness that hides the ache, and to show up as we are. And yes, it can be terrifying. But when you meet someone who doesn't look away, who says with their eyes, "I see you, and you're safe here," something miraculous happens. The layers fall away. The shame loosens its grip. You remember once again that you are worthy, not for what you've done, but simply because you are alive. So perhaps the invitation in this stage of life is to stop waiting for others to truly see us, and instead begin to offer that sacred gift first. Start by listening more than you speak, by looking into someone's eyes and meaning it, by showing up not with answers, but with your full, open-hearted presence. That kind of presence is rare, it's healing, it's holy, and you, dear soul, have lived long enough to offer it well. 6. Surround yourself with light. The energy of those around you. There's a quiet wisdom that arrives with time. We begin to understand that the people we choose to be around or allow into our hearts shape more than just our days. They shape our spirit. They influence the very way we think, feel, breathe, and see ourselves. Like sunlight filtering through a window, the presence of others can either warm us or weigh us down. The older we get, the more sensitive we become to energy. Not in the mystical sense necessarily, but in the deeply human, everyday way. We know, instinctively, which conversations lift us and which leave us drained. We recognize who truly listens and who simply waits for their turn to speak. And perhaps, more than ever, we begin to crave lightness, not just in mood, but in being. In Buddhist thought, there is a term called kalyashamitta. It means spiritual friend. Not just someone we enjoy spending time with, but someone whose presence supports our path. Someone whose energy reminds us of who we are when we are most clear, most compassionate, most awake. These friends don't have to be many. Sometimes one is enough. One person who sees your light and reflects it back to you. And yet, so often, we stay entangled in relationships that dim us, out of guilt, out of habit, out of fear of being alone. But solitude, as many of us discover later in life, is not the enemy. The wrong company, that's what leaves us truly lonely. As the saying goes, better to walk alone than with a crowd going in the wrong direction. I once met a man who had spent his entire career surrounded by critics, people who belittled his ideas, laughed at his sensitivity, dismissed his longing for beauty and stillness. It wasn't until he retired that he realized he had built a life in reaction to other people's voices. It took him decades to finally step back and ask, what kind of energy do I want to live in? His answer, peace, kindness, depth. He began volunteering at a local garden, joined a group that read poetry under trees, drank tea slowly, laughed more softly. And he told me once, eyes bright with clarity, I feel more myself now than I ever did when I was trying to be impressive. That is the gift of this stage of life, the right and the responsibility to choose your energy. To choose people who speak gently, who listen deeply, who uplift your spirit without needing anything in return. People who remind you of your goodness, your wholeness, your light. There's a story in Buddhist tradition about a student who asked his master, how can I stay mindful in a world so full of noise? The master replied, sit with the trees, walk with the wind, keep the company of those who ask nothing of you except that you be yourself. So perhaps today is a gentle nudge to reflect, who surrounds you? Do they inspire the best in you? Do they make you feel calm, curious, creative, kind? Or do they make you shrink, question, defend, or doubt? You deserve beauty. You deserve simplicity. You deserve people who meet you where you are, without needing you to prove anything. And more than that, you can be that person for someone else. A soft voice in a loud world, a steady presence in a restless one, a light in someone else's dusk. Because when you surround yourself with those who shine from the inside out, you remember your own glow. And that, more than anything, may be the most important truth to carry forward. So what does it all come down to? After the stories, the memories, the reflections we've shared together, perhaps it's this, that being human is not about having everything figured out or getting everything right. It's not about escaping pain or chasing happiness. It's about living with open hands. It's about feeling fully, deeply, honestly. It's about letting ourselves experience the heartbreak and the beauty of life, sometimes in the same breath. We've explored how the objects we hold close aren't just things, they are portals to memory, to love, to who we once were and still are. We've looked at joy and sorrow, not as rivals, but as twin teachers, guiding us toward presence. We've talked about the strength that arises not from pride, but from care, the quiet courage of carrying on for the people we love, and for the younger version of ourselves who still longs to be protected. We reminded ourselves of the two simplest truths that carry so much weight. Don't panic, and remember who you are, not just on good days, but on the hard ones. We spoke of the sacredness of being seen and the healing that begins when we truly see others without judgment. And we came home to the quiet truth that the company we keep matters, that who surrounds us shapes who we become. So now I leave you with this question. What would change in your life if you let yourself feel it all, instead of fearing it? What if you honored the tenderness in your heart, not as a weakness, but as proof that you're still alive, still loving, still growing? You don't need to rush toward answers. The path of wisdom is not a race. It's a return to yourself. And maybe the purpose isn't to be anything more than what you already are. A soul walking gently through this world, trying to stay awake. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening with your heart. If this reflection has touched something within you, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Your story, your voice, could be the mirror someone else needs to feel less alone. And if you'd like to continue this journey of quiet wisdom, compassion, and clarity, we warmly invite you to subscribe to the channel. There's so much more to explore together, because even now, no matter your age or your past, the truest chapters may still be ahead, and the most important place you can be is here.